Hello again. I thought I'd do a reading from the chapter on bears, which covers polar bears, brown bears, and cave bears. And this is a bit from the end of the chapter looking at cave bears. Cave bears are gone, and brown bears are here, which poses a slight conundrum. These are sister species, albeit with some clear differences. So why did one disappear and the other survive? I think there are enough clues to give us some idea of what actually went down. We know that cave bears were less flexible than brown bears in some of their behaviours. Genetic comparisons between the two species in caves in northern Spain throw up an interesting difference. For thousands of years, cave bears of the same lineage came back again and again to the same caves, whereas brown bears of different lineages are found in multiple caves. The conclusion is clear. Cave bears were tied to their hibernation sites and returned year after year, their cubs inheriting the same cave and unthinkingly following their ancestors. On the contrary, brown bears had the flexibility to move cave on a whim or if presented with an obstacle. In a similar vein, cave bears seem to have been strictly vegetarian, according to their stable isotopes, or at best only occasionally omnivorous. Brown bears had the behavioral flexibility to switch between carnivory and herbivory based on what was available. This ability to shift with the situation is a great adaptation for survival in an uncertain world. Evidence shows that modern humans hunted hibernating cave bears. If the poor bears had no choice but to come back to the same caves year upon year and generation after generation, then the culling could not fail to have had a serious effect. In the uncertain and variable climate of the late Pleistocene, having strict dietary requirements would be an additional burden to survivors. It wouldn't take much pressure to push a species like the cave bear to extinction. Think of how the giant panda has fared with humans over the past few centuries. Very few people have tried eating them. President Roosevelt's sons Kermit and Theodore Jr. are on record as the first Westerners to shoot a giant panda for the Field Museum in Chicago. Of course, they ate some of it. Their guides were horrified, but they did not record how it tasted. The clearance of bamboo forests has forced them into ever more marginal habit where they struggle to produce enough offspring to replace themselves. Cave bears could have been similar, harried by people butchering them in the winter, struggling to find enough food in the summer, in conflict with people all year round for use of caves as shelter, getting whittled away. This is exactly the pattern we find recorded in their population structure using a comparison of radiocarbon dated and DNA sequenced individuals to reconstruct population change, similar to what was done for bison. See Chapter 7. Starting around 45,000 years ago, precisely the time that modern humans arrive in Europe from the east, the population size of the cave bear goes into a steep nosedive. At the same time, brown bears remained at a steady population size. The decline is so stark that even back in the 1960s, Bjorn Curtin, using just the bones, was able to identify that the extinction of the cave bear was not a sudden thing, but a gradual process spread out over several thousand years. The very last cave bear we have a date from, anywhere on Earth, is 19,686 radiocarbon years old, about 24,000 calendar years old. It's from a cave in northern Italy. I may be an old romantic, but for me the saddest, most poignant remnant of the time of the cave bears is so subtle that it escaped notice until fairly recently. Within many caves all over Europe, there are weirdly polished surfaces in nooks, crannies, and tunnels that defied explanation. These surfaces are Bärenschliffe, literally bear shine in German, caused by the rubbing of tens of thousands of bears as they entered and exited their hibernation den year after year. It's like the answer to some Zen koan of how to define infinity. If, once a year, the fur of a cave bear touches the rock of the mountain wall, when the mountain has eroded completely, 1 second of infinity will have passed. It is an infinity that will never come. And I've actually got a piece of cave bear here. So this is a jawbone from a cave bear, and so this piece of bone itself is at least 24,000 years old, which is quite incredible to think about. And it's one of the pieces that I take in when I've been working with school children, and they're always quite impressed with not just how old it is, but also how kind of well preserved some of the bits of the teeth are. So it's a nice thing to show them.